Yep, Rakk TALA is the cheapest gasket-mounted mechanical keyboard I've tried this year. The exact price of this keyboard is 2,195 pesos. It's really enticing to buy, right? Aside from the gasket mount, it also has a Trimode connection. Having a Trimode connection is essential, especially if you have multiple devices. For example, you have 2 laptops or a laptop and a desktop. Enabling a specific connection mode is pretty easy on this keyboard because of the subscripts printed on some specific keys. By the way, the USB dongle compartment is placed on the right side. Connection-wise, the keyboard runs smoothly on all connection modes. I've been using Rakk TALA for more than 2 weeks now and I haven't encountered any connection issues. In addition, if you just want to be in wired mode, you can do that and you can use your own cable, unlike some budget keyboards wherein their USB-C port is too enclosed. However, the placement of the toggle switch is underneath the keyboard. I think it would be better if the toggle switch is on the side just like what they did in Rakk Plus. Now if we check it, there's only 2 switch options, wired and wireless. In wireless mode, you can use Bluetooth or 2.4 GHz USB dongle. Interestingly, there's no operating system toggle switch you can use in this keyboard. Good thing the Windows key can function as the command button when you're on Mac OS. No need to configure or map the functionality. I think this is really a good feature because you don't need to switch between operating systems using a toggle button. As for the battery capacity, Rakk TALA has 2200 mAh battery capacity. In my testing with the RGB turned on, the uptime of the keyboard is around 21 hours. In this test, all the lighting is turned on including the RGB strips on both sides. On the other hand, turning off the RGB lighting, the recorded uptime of this keyboard shot up to more than 60 hours. By the way, in both tests, I switched between Bluetooth and 2.4 GHz wireless connections. To be honest, I like the performance, especially when turning off the lighting. To me, having no RGB lighting is fine, but for some, turning it off might not be ideal. As for the charging time, it took me around 5 hours to fully charge it. When the battery is at critical levels, the spacebar will blink red, and when it's full, it will emit a steady green light. Now that we have discussed the performance of Rakk TALA, let's now discuss the layout and design. This keyboard has a 75% layout and a knob, more of the knob later. It has RGB strips on each side, and like I said earlier, the USB compartment is placed on the right side. Now if you flip the keyboard, you'll see the keyboard stands, rubber feet, brand logo, and the toggle switch. It also has Rakk logo below the page down key. Looks familiar, right? Rakk TALA looks like Rakk Hanan. So what are the differences and similarities between TALA and Hanan? Rakk TALA and Rakk Hanan are both 75% layout keyboards with volume knobs. They both have gasket mounting and they can support 5-pin switches. In addition, Rakk TALA and Rakk Hanan both have Trimode connection. Meanwhile, their differences are the plate, the components inside the board, and the package inclusion. I think these differences are the main reason why Rakk TALA is cheaper than Hanan. By the way, the comparison we did is based on their respective spec sheets. I cannot compare their performance and keyboard experience since I don't have a Rakk Hanan unit. Like I said earlier, Rakk TALA has an aluminum knob and it has 2 functionalities. First is to adjust the volume of the device Rakk TALA is connected to. Second is to adjust the RGB lighting of the typing area. Unfortunately, it cannot adjust the lighting of the RGB strips found on each side of the keyboard. And if you want to switch the functionality of the knob, just press and hold it for 5 seconds. Now if you check the weight, it's 863 grams. The weight is just within the average weight of most keyboards, and I think the reason why it weighed above 800 grams is because of its layout. But you can still bring this keyboard anywhere, especially if you're always on the go. And just like most keyboards, Rakk TALA has downloadable software which you can get from Rakk website. Inside the software, you can map the keys, add macro settings, and set the lighting. You can also toggle the music visualizer of the keyboard. Another thing worth mentioning is that the software can only detect the keyboard when using it in wired mode. The software will not open if you're using Bluetooth or 2.4 GHz wireless connection. And in case you're wondering, Rakk TALA is not VIA supported. As for the switches, the review unit Rakk sent has brown switches, and upon checking, this is the only available switch for this keyboard. Good thing the keyboard is hot swappable and we can replace the stock switches depending on our liking. By the way, here's a quick sound test using the stock switches. According to the spec sheet, Rakk TALA's keycaps are ABS double-shot keycaps. If we measure its thickness, we'll see that it's 1mm. They are also shine-through, hence the number of lighting modes. You can set different lighting modes of the keyboard by doing key combinations. Also, you can enable the gaming mode lighting by doing FN+1 up to 4. Now let's tear this keyboard down. The teardown process is pretty easy and you don't need any tools to pry open this keyboard. You'll just need a switch and keycap puller and a screwdriver to unscrew the PCB from the plate. Once you have removed the keycaps and switches, just pull the sides of the top casing outwards to detach it from the bottom casing. You'll hear a clicking sound once you do it properly. Do this on all sides of the mechanical keyboard to detach the top cover without breaking it. After removing the top casing, you'll see the gasket mounting and the plate-mounted stabilizers. You'll also see a silicone dampener covering the 2200 mAh battery. There's also a poron foam sandwich between the PCB and the polycarbonate plate. By the way, the PCB of Rakk TALA is a hot swap north facing PCB. Now, to separate the PCB from the plate, you need to unscrew 12 screws found at the back of the PCB. By the way, I'll be modifying this keyboard. I'll replace the stock stabilizers with the stabilizers of Rakk Plus. They're better and they're not wobbly. I'll also apply some lubing on all stabs and will replace the brown switches with Acos Matcha Green Pro V3 linear switches. And to differentiate the acoustics from the stock mechanical keyboard, I'll be adding tape mod and will also replace the stock keycaps with an aftermarket double-shot PBT keycaps. The unboxing experience is good, to be honest. You'll find the usual inclusion like user manual, the charging cable, a keycap and switch puller, and lastly the mechanical keyboard itself. Rakk TALA is a good option if you want to experience a gasket mounted keyboard on a budget. Also, there were no delays when typing, no connection issues, no battery issues during my testing. Another thing that I like is the knob. It's very handy, especially if you want to adjust the volume. However, I wish the keyboard had a bigger battery capacity. Although it has a long uptime when the RGB lighting is turned off, I think it will be better if it has longer uptime when there is RGB lighting. But I guess it's one way of reducing the cost of this keyboard. I think Rakk aimed to make this keyboard the cheapest gasket mounted keyboard, which I think they were able to achieve. Huge thanks to Rakk for sending this keyboard in. And that's it guys, we have reached the end part now. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Till our next, goodbye.